Sometimes when you read history, you think, wait, did someone just make this up? Can things like this actually happen? That's exactly what I thought when I first read about Wu Zetian, a 14-year-old girl sent into a harem almost like a slave, and she ends up becoming the emperor of all of China? Not empress, emperor, something no woman had managed in 1,000 years. But it's true, and the truth is, as thrilling as it is, deeply uncomfortable. Because if you go looking for good people in this story, you're going to have a hard time. So let's begin. 638 AD, the Tang Dynasty. Capital city, Chang'an, the largest city on Earth at that time. Think about it. Rome is crumbling. Paris doesn't exist yet. London is just a small patch of land. And Chang'an has over 1 million people living in it. Arab merchants, Persian poets, Turkish generals, all walking the same streets. And right at the center of that city stood the emperor's palace. Once you stepped inside, the outside world ceased to exist. Inside lived over 1,000 women, the emperor's concubines, servants, attendants, keeping your identity alive among 1,000 people. Even just surviving, that itself was a battle. That year, a new group of girls was brought into Emperor Taizong's harem. One of them was a girl, 14 years old. Her name was Wu Meng. She was beautiful, yes, but the palace was full of beautiful girls. What set Wu Meng apart were her eyes. I know that sounds like a cliché, but the people who saw her kept coming back to those eyes. A calm, cold gaze. One that read, people. This girl would one day become Wu Zetian. Her rank inside the palace was near the very bottom, 5th tier concubine, row 5. Normally, a girl like that would be forgotten entirely. Most of the women in that palace spent years, sometimes their whole lives, without ever once being seen by the emperor. Then they grew old. Then they died. Wu Zetian knew this, and she decided, this will not be her ending. But how? The usual formula for surviving the palace was, stay beautiful, stay obedient, catch the emperor's eye. She could have done that, but she understood. The best that formula ever got you was becoming the emperor's favorite concubine. And after that, when the emperor died, you shaved your head and went to a monastery. She wanted something else. Exactly what? She probably didn't fully know yet, but it was a lot more than that. Let me tell you a story here. Whether this one is completely true, I can't say for certain, but it tells you everything about who Wu Zetian was. Emperor Taizong had a horse named Lion, massive, powerful, untamable. Nobody could break it. One day, young Wu Zetian looked at the emperor and said, "Your Majesty, give me 3 things, an iron whip, a hammer, and a dagger. First, I'll whip it. If it still won't obey, the hammer. And if that doesn't work, I'll cut its throat with the dagger." The emperor laughed, but there was something uneasy in that laugh, because this girl wasn't saying something romantic. She wasn't trying to charm him. She was simply, calmly, telling him how she solves problems. The emperor was a smart man. He didn't pull her any closer. He probably understood. Keep this fire too near and it will burn you. 649 AD, Emperor Taizong died. For the thousands of women in the palace, this was a nightmare. Every woman without a child would be sent to a Buddhist monastery, head shaved, white robes. The rest of their life spent praying for a dead emperor. Wu Zetian had no children. She was sent to the Ganya monastery. For most women, this is where the story would have ended, but not for Wu Zetian, because she had already been weaving her web. Emperor Taizong had many sons. The 9th was named Li Ji. He would later become Emperor Gaozong. Li Ji was nothing like his father. His father was a warrior, hard, direct. Li Ji was soft-hearted, emotional, a little weak, you might say. Wu Zetian had figured this out while the old emperor was still alive, and she had quietly built something of a connection with Li Ji. While she sat in the monastery, Wu Zetian knew he had not forgotten her. One day, The new Emperor Gaozong came to the monastery to pay respects to his late father. Wu Zetian had been waiting for exactly this moment. She wept. She brought back old memories, and Gaozong, already the type to be moved easily, got completely caught in that web. The problem was, bringing a nun back into the palace was absolutely against the rules. It was a scandal. The emperor's own father's concubine, and now the emperor himself brings her home? But somehow, the solution arrived on its own. Gaozong's chief wife was Empress Wang. The woman couldn't produce an heir. Her position in the palace was shaky because of it. On top of that, another concubine named Xiao was steadily gaining influence. So Empress Wang thought, what if we bring Wu Zetian back? She'll pull the emperor's attention away from Xiao, and Wu Zetian will be grateful to me forever. This was one of the greatest mistakes in the history of bad decisions. Empress Wang didn't realize she was personally picking up a venomous snake and releasing it inside her own home. Wu Zetian returned to the palace, but she was no longer that teenage girl. Now she knew exactly how the palace worked, who was aligned with whom, where the weaknesses were, how to use people. She began drawing the emperor toward herself, not just with beauty, but by advising him on state matters, discussing poetry, helping him navigate the complexity of the court. Gaozong slowly reached a point where he couldn't think without her. Then, Wu Zetian gave birth to a son. Her position was secured, but she knew, as long as Empress Wang and Xiao were still around, she could never reach real power. And so came the incident, the one historians still cannot agree on. 654 AD. Wu Zetian gave birth to a baby girl. One day, Empress Wang came to see the infant, held her for a while, cooed over her, then left. A little while later, Emperor Gaozong arrived. The baby was dead, smothered. Wu Zetian collapsed in tears and pointed her finger directly at the Empress. Now the question, who did it? The truth is, many historians believe Wu Zetian killed her own newborn daughter. That sentence is deeply uncomfortable to read. Her own baby, but think about it. Was there any more perfect excuse to destroy the Empress? There were no witnesses. Wang had been there. That much was established. If Wu Zetian actually did this, and many believe she did, then you have to understand what kind of person this was. Someone who could act with this level of cold, calculated precision. Emperor Gaozong believed Wu Zetian, Empress Wang and concubine Xiao. He stripped them of everything, had them thrown into the darkest cells of the palace. Sometime later, the emperor asked after them, showed a flicker of sympathy. Wu Zetian found out. What happened next is not easy to describe. Wang and Xiao had their hands and feet cut off. They were submerged in large vats of wine. They writhed in agony for days before dying. The entire court went still. Everyone understood. To stand against Wu Zetian meant this ending. In 655, Gaozong officially declared Wu Zetian his chief empress, from a monastery to the seat beside the throne. But Wu Zetian didn't want to sit beside the throne. She wanted to sit on it, and in a few years, the opportunity arrived. Gaozong fell seriously ill. Blinding headaches, cloudy vision, he couldn't work. Wu Zetian quietly began reviewing state documents, meeting with ministers. In ancient China, this was unthinkable, and yet, it was happening. From behind a curtain, a woman was running a vast empire. Every appointment, every punishment, every treaty, all by her word. Gaozong became a powerless puppet. Around this time, Wu Zetian strengthened her intelligence network. A copper box was placed in front of the palace. Anyone could drop a secret letter accusing any official? That sounds almost democratic. But in reality, it was a terrifying weapon of suspicion. People died on false accusations. Ministers stopped trusting each other. Brothers stopped trusting brothers. A cold dread spread through the entire court. Even her own children were not spared. Her eldest son, Li Hong, Genuinely a good man. People loved him. He was fair, kind, compassionate. In 675, he suddenly died. 24 years old, mysteriously. A large number of historians believe Wu Zetian poisoned him herself because a popular son would eventually become a rival. Her second son, Li Xian, began speaking out against his mother, framed on false charges, sent into exile, then forced to take his own life. In this battle for power, motherhood was no shield. In 683, Gaozong died. Her third son, Zhongzong, became emperor, but within a few months, Wu Zetian removed him because he was trying to bring his wife's family into power. Her fourth son, Ruizong, was placed on the throne and kept essentially as a prisoner. Wu Zetian was no longer working from behind a curtain. She was sitting right there, doing it openly, but there was still one thing left to do. She wanted a title that no woman had ever held, not Empress, Emperor. To achieve this impossible thing, she turned to religion. Suddenly, all across the country, mysterious stones and ancient inscriptions started appearing. They said, "A great woman will come and lead China into a golden age." Buddhist monks began declaring that Wu Zetian was an incarnation of the Buddha. Who left those inscriptions? Who paid those monks? You don't have to think very hard about that. At the same time, the generals, the royal family members, anyone who resisted, they were eliminated. Nearly every person carrying Tang royal blood was wiped out. She was standing on blood, waiting. 690 AD, Wu Zetian was 67 years old. She sat on the throne. She erased the name of the Tang dynasty. A new dynasty, Zhou, and she declared herself emperor, not empress, emperor, Huangdi, for the first time in 1,000 years of Chinese history. And then something strange happened. The woman who had shed so much blood to reach the throne, once she was on it, she became a remarkable ruler. She reformed the examination system to make it more fair. Now it wasn't just sons of aristocrats who could rise. A talented boy from a poor family could reach high office too. She reduced the tax burden on farmers. She expanded the empire's borders. The greatest poets, scholars, and artists of the land flocked to Chang'an. Under her patronage of Buddhism, countless temples and sculptures were built, some of which still stand in China today. For ordinary people, this was a time of peace. Whatever criticism historians heap on her cruelty, this much cannot be denied. Her reign was one of the most prosperous periods in Chinese history. But time stops for no one. Past 70, approaching 80, Wu Zetian's body began to break down. She became bedridden, and into the palace walked two young men, Zhang Yizhi and Zhang Changzong, two brothers. Wu Zetian became intensely, almost obsessively attached to them. The woman who had chosen people her whole life based on talent and ability, at the very edge of her life, she handed limitless power to two arrogant, worthless young men. The ministers were seething. The generals were furious. The royal family members were crouching in the shadows, waiting. Wu Zetian's intelligence network was no longer as sharp as it used to be. This time, they had their opening. A winter night in 705, Prime Minister Zhang Jianzhi, several top generals, palace guards, they moved into the palace together. With them was Wu Zetian's exiled son, the one she had once stripped from the throne. The soldiers went straight into Wu Zetian's bedchamber. The old woman, sick and frail, was in her bed. Right in front of her eyes, the two Zhang brothers were dragged out, beheaded. Wu Zetian herself was not killed. She was forced to give up the throne. Her Zhou dynasty, 15 years in the making, was finished. The Tang dynasty returned. Wu Zetian was moved to an isolated palace. 10 months after losing power, in December of 705 at 81 years old, she died. Before she died, she left behind a strange last wish. She asked not to be buried as emperor, but as an empress of the Tang dynasty, beside her husband Gaozong. Why? Some say she understood that a patriarchal history would never accept her as a legitimate emperor. Some say that at the very end, perhaps she wanted to return to the one person who had, at some point in her life, genuinely meant something to her. She was placed in the Qianling Mausoleum. In front of it stood a massive stone slab. By Chinese tradition, such a slab would be inscribed with the emperor's great deeds. But on Wu Zetian's slab, nothing was written. 20 feet of stone, not a single word. Why blank? Some say her crimes were so many that history refused to write them down. Some say she gave the order herself because her life could not be contained in any slab. Let future generations be the judge. I don't know which is true, but that blank stone still stands today, and people still go to look at it. A 14-year-old girl brought in like a slave. And this is how she stayed in history, good or evil. That question is yours to answer.